From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Wildcast podcast. I'm Alec White. We have a little bit of a different format today. Our colleague and typical host, Justin Spears, is out on the injured reserve with a lost voice. He cannot speak, so it's not good because he does ESPN Tucson radio, and he's going to be out for the rest of the week. So of all the injuries and possible ailments for a podcaster slash radio person, loss of voices on the top of that list. But filling in, we've got Michael Lev, recurring guest Michael Lev. It's been a while since we've had him.
Hello.
And then we've got sports editor Ryan Finley making a special appearance.
What's up?
So, guys, it's mid-June. It's the dog days of summer, but there's a lot to talk about. The Wildcats just wrapped up the 21-22 sports season. We're going to kind of recap the award show, as you would say, just kind of give a list of best highs and lows of the year, some standout athletes, and kind of look ahead to next year. But we're going to start with the sport that just most recently finished, and that's Arizona baseball. First round exit, regional exit in the NCAA tournament. Michael Lev, they were in Coral Gables, which it's Miami, but I had never really heard of it referred to as Coral Gables. Miami, South Beach, Fort Lauderdale, whatever. But they were in Coral Gables, which is University of Miami's campus. They knocked out Miami in a stunning game, but there was rain delays. There was shifting of the schedules. They ended up getting shellacked by Ole Miss in the regional championship. Just, Michael Lev, take us through your NCAA baseball regional experience.
Yes, it was quite an experience. As Ryan knows, we went back and forth all week long. Like, should I go? Should I not go? If I do go, when should I go? And this was because a tropical storm was coming through South Florida. And, I mean, we knew they weren't going to play on Friday. It just seemed like there was no chance. I was supposed to go out Thursday night, and we're just monitoring the forecast, trying to figure out what's the best course of action. And at some point, it seemed pretty likely that maybe they wouldn't play on Saturday either. So we canceled my trip, and, they didn't play Friday. So we're like, hey, how smart are we? But then the storm went through South Florida pretty fast, maybe faster than people thought it would. They did end up playing on Saturday. I kind of audibled to a plan of taking a red-eye flight out Saturday night that arrived Sunday morning. I ended up missing one game, which was the Ole Miss opener. And I was kind of like watching it on my phone in the airport, the Phoenix airport, then the Vegas airport. It was a whirlwind. And we kind of covered that one remotely. I got in to Miami at about 6:30 a.m. Sunday. I was able to check into my hotel, sleep for about 90 minutes, and headed to the ballpark. And what a long and crazy day it was on Sunday. They beat Canisius, which is what you'd expect, in a game that started, I think, at 11 a.m. local time. And there's another game in between. And then they would play the loser of that Miami-Ole Miss game. And it turned out to be Miami, surprising result. And then, deep into the night Sunday.
I mean,
that was
deep
into the night. It looked like season over.
I mean, they were down to their last strike.
They were down to their last strike, and Daniel Susak got hit by a pitch.
Yep.
Well, the inning started with, the shortstop for Miami kind of rushing. He made a diving stop, a great play, and then he kind of rushed it through high. So Nick McClary got on base, and then Susak got hit by a pitch. Pinch ran for Susak with Tyler Casagrande, which was a very good move by Chip Hale.
Big house.
And then Tanner Otremba steps to the plate and rips a double to right center, 2-run score. Arizona takes the lead. Arizona ends up winning the game. Probably the highlight of the season. And at that point in time, Ryan and I probably had the same exact thought. It was worth it for me to go out there
for that moment.
To experience that game.
For that finish. Keep in mind, too, the right fielder butchered that play in right field. But yes, still, credit goes to Tanner Otremba, but that ball scooted through pretty pretty crazily there.
He hit a hard line drive.
Yep.
And the right fielder definitely misplayed it. I don't know how you let that ball get past you in that situation, knowing that the go-ahead run is on first base.
Yeah.
But, things happen. It was, I'm sure the turf was kind of wet and somewhat treacherous out there for the outfielders. They ended up losing big the next day, but it was still cool and I think worthwhile experience to be there on the ground. And there's just certain things that you can pick up on when you're there that you otherwise wouldn't. Like I watched them come off the field after their last game, and like Daniel Susak, he's got his jersey off. You can see like his face is all red and teary-eyed, and he's hugging every single player. So I'm like, I am ripping up my lead, and this is going to be my lead. The emotion of the moment, and unless you were there, you wouldn't have picked up on that. So to me, that made it all worthwhile.
Well, Ryan, you and I were probably both watching the ESPN Plus stream, and we can spend a whole other podcast dissecting the declining quality of the ESPN Plus production crews. But
look at you taking shots at John Jay. Go ahead.
You know what? It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. It was a hard watch at some.
He was
points
very
that game.
soft. At some point, you say on that broadcast, "Hey, man, speak up or fix his mic or something." Anyway, keep going. Yes.
Well, I just goes to Michael Lev's credit, just being there on the ground and experiencing that. One thing I kind of wondered that Sunday to Monday, because the game they won late into the night on Sunday evening, and then they were supposed to play 1 p.m. Eastern time against Ole Miss, which is 10 a.m. Tucson time. That got delayed about 4 hours. It just felt like Arizona was lost all that adrenaline because you probably don't sleep well the night before going into that. You're waking up, getting to the ballpark relatively early, and then you're sitting around for 4 hours waiting through a storm. Meanwhile, Ole Miss got extra, played earlier on Sunday, got extra sleep, and kind of got additional rest.
It is greatly beneficial to go through the winner's bracket. I mean, no ifs, ands, or buts. They had more rest, and I think that was a huge factor. The biggest, Achilles heel of this Arizona team was lack of pitching depth. And a lot of that had to do with injuries. Chandler Murphy was kind of never right the whole season. Dawson Netz got hurt midway through the season, so you go from having like 4 starters to 2. And when you're in a regional and you're playing every day or even multiple games in a day, it becomes really difficult. And you saw kind of the end result of that. They gave up 22 runs in the last game.
Well, and keep in mind, too, I mean, when you lose that first game, as Arizona did, with the condensed schedule that Arizona had to play because of the tropical storm, Arizona, to win the regional, would have had to win 4 games in something like 30 hours. Right?
Yeah.
4 games, 30 hours. And to their credit, they won 2 of them. But, I mean, you saw the pitching come apart. I think this speaks to a larger point about college baseball, too. And I don't know, Michael, what you think about this. I covered college baseball for us for years and years and years. I was there when Arizona won the national championship 10 years ago this month. College baseball is terrible until it's great, right? The bad games are really ugly. There's a lot of 21-6s. There's a lot of 4-hour, 10-minute games. And then, every once in a while you see it like we saw in Arizona's regional. Arizona's first game against Ole Miss was spectacular television. It was, as to me, compelling a college baseball game as I've seen all year. Played great. The finish against Miami, spectacular the next day, right? Just, great baseball. Mm-hmm. And then you see what happens the next day where they lose by a couple of touchdowns. To me, this is why college baseball should be a 7-inning game. To me, there is not enough pitching depth anywhere in America to sustain a team through the postseason. And if this is happening to Arizona, right? Arizona is like the North Carolina basketball of college baseball, right? Arizona has advantages baked in a history baked in 4 national championships? This happened to Arizona. This happens to everybody. To me, if you cut down the innings to 7, maybe you're more able to use or bake in a skunk rule like we have in softball. Maybe then you can save those arms, and maybe then we see a better quality of baseball instead of it just kind of petering out. And this has been a nationwide thing. I've seen more 21-13 results in the last 2 weeks than I think I've seen ever before.
There was a run rule in the Pac-12 tournament, right? Just so you know. I don't know if it ever came into effect, but So during my not to get into too much of a tangent here, but during the rain delay, I went down to the dugout and I was just chit chatting with the coaches down there and that sort of thing. And Chip Hale mentioned this format for the postseason that he likes and prefers, and it's been discussed within the college baseball world. You get rid of the conference tournaments, okay?
It was nice knowing you.
All right, so hold on. Just give me a second. You get rid of the conference tournaments. That weekend, you play 2 out of 3, and the teams in the NCAA tournament are seeded 1 through 64. So one plays 64 or thereabouts. Maybe you tweak it a little for travel purposes. 2 out of 3. And then the next weekend, round of 32, 2 out of 3. Weekend after that, 2 out of 3 to get to the College World Series.
That's
that
really
way,
smart.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right, isn't it?
As
Then you don't
opposed to-
have the double elimination. You don't have the playing 4 games in 30 hours.
I mean, it still
just-
is double elimination, but it's against the
everyone
same
gets 2
opponent.
games. Everyone gets 2 games. You'd have way better attendance, right? Because the top 32 in the country are at home, right? Like, let's say Arizona snuck into that top 32. You'd have 5,000 fans probably at one of those games, as opposed to, like, who's going to see Arizona against Ole Miss on a Monday afternoon in Miami?
I
you
mean,
know?
we saw on TV about 75 people.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. ESPN, of course, has a big stake in this thing. It provides a lot of programming for them, but I think it still would. And you could probably use local broadcasters, and you can use that sort of streaming option that Alec seems to enjoy so much. It might not be the highest quality, and maybe you're only televising like the top 16 or whatever that first round. But I think it's an interesting idea because you keep kind of the regular season format / rest for the pitchers.
Yes.
And speaking of which, the Pac-12 announced the softball
Very exciting.
tournament, right? This is the one sport where you can use the same pitcher like the whole
in
weekend.
the same game too. You can take this pitcher out.
They
come
can
back
pitch
in.
multiple games in a row, and they're doing single elimination. Can you explain this to me?
Yeah. So
Why?
I don't know why, but in Pac-12 softball, you got 9 teams. So the 8 and 9, it's going to be based on conference record. Just like any other conference tournament, but 8 and 9 play a quote unquote play-in game, and then that determines the field of 8. So then you have just a single elimination game. You play a maximum of 1 game per day, so it's spread across 3 days. So there's really very minimal wear and tear. I mean, you look at softball, the regionals. I mean, it's kind of like the format for the men's side for baseball, where you lose. There's days where you have to play possibly 2 games. So I think it's a really smart idea.
Like why? But why would baseball have a double elimination format where you have to the arms are at risk, and softball
in a
has
conference
single
tournament?
Yeah.
The conference tournament, that doesn't matter. I mean, no offense. We covered the conference tournament. I think conference tournament's important. The conference tournament is played for seeding. I mean, it's played for regional seeding is basically what we're doing. Unless your number 7 seed somehow makes a magical run and gets the automatic bid.
Which might have been Arizona.
Which might have been Arizona,
by the way.
right.
Yeah.
But, that's the thing that is crazy to me. Michael, as much as everybody likes underdogs and, these great Cinderella stories in a postseason, I think that if it was up to the people who run college baseball, you just move the top 8 teams all the way through to Omaha for the College World Series, because you want to see the best teams play each other, right? That format that Chip Hale seems to like, to me, basically makes it easier for better teams to make it through. If you have an ace who's a top 5 pick, let's say, you can pitch him Friday against the number 64 team in the country, the following Friday in the round of 32, the following Friday. To me, and again, I think that this would work for Arizona more than it would work against it. To me, that's a much better gauge of who the best teams in America are. If you allow your ace to pitch at every stage, in every round, let's say.
Like how cool are the super regionals, right? The super regionals are that format. They are a 2 out of 3 at someone's home stadium, and you can very easily lose the first game and come back and win.
Right.
And it's not like this marathon that you have to of good performances that you have to put together. You just have to win 2 games. You don't have to win 4.
Right. Well, and that's what Omaha at some point becomes a marathon too. It comes down to if you win your first game, you're sitting pretty. If you win your second game, you're literally backed into a corner, throwing haymakers and hoping that something lands. Right. That's all you do. And you've been a couple times. I've been once. It makes for great television. It's super compelling. I'm not sure it's necessarily the best way to gauge who the best team in America is.
Yeah. All right, Michael Lev. Before we move on to our award ceremony, give us just a snapshot of Arizona baseball, where the program is at. It sounds like some changes are on the way. Susac is, going to be leaving, going to be a high MLB draft pick, most likely. Just kind of where is the direction of the program after 1 year with Chip Hale?
Yeah, well, he basically inherited a team and didn't have a lot of opportunities to make changes to that team. It was kind of a scramble they wanted to just kind of keep the team together. They went to the College World Series last year. They did lose a bunch of guys, but they brought back some star players as well. They only added two guys through the transfer portal, 2 relief pitchers, and that was pretty much it.
In the year 2022, that's sacrilege.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Only
right?
2 players,
It's crazy, but that's because of the timing of it all. You don't usually lose your head coach in late June. That just doesn't happen that often. So, Chip comes in and he was hired July 5th or 7th or something like that. And he's, there's going to be a lot of changes in personnel. They've got a huge class coming in. I think they announced 21 back in November, so either 19 or 21. And Chip said they're going to bring in 20 plus players, even if they lose 3 or 4 of them to the draft. That's a lot for college baseball. That's a huge,
massive
transformation. So, they might be young next year, and that could be a challenge. If they don't lose anybody else to the portal, they're still going to have T.J. Nichols, who still has top of the rotation stuff.
He throws 95.
Yeah, he's got all the physical tools. It's just maybe it's a matter of figuring it out. They still have Chase Davis. Likely first rounder, light tower power, can do pretty much everything. Maybe he'll move to center field next year, and we can see more of his defensive prowess. But I think we are headed into kind of a transformation, a transition period, I should say, where they're going to kind of maybe get young and sort of have that process of building up. I don't think they're going to be like a preseason top 25 team next year unless they get some really high profile transfers because of the youth and the guys that they're probably going to lose. But I also think that the program is in good hands, right? The quote of the year to me, from any athlete, and obviously I'm kind of biased toward baseball, was the very last press conference of the team, the last team to be eliminated. Daniel Susac gets up there and he goes, the second best decision I ever made was coming to Arizona. The best decision I made was staying at Arizona, to play for Chip.
He was in the portal for a brief period.
Well, he wasn't in the portal.
Not in the portal.
He
could, yes.
Yeah, any of them could have left, and some of them did. Some of them followed Jay Johnson to LSU. So that was just a great endorsement of Chip and what he's got going there.
I think this is a good transition to probably the next segment of our show here.
Yep.
But I think that Chip Hale and Tommy Lloyd are going to go through a lot of the same things, right? They both inherited a situation that was undeniably good in terms of talent on the team. I think that they both coached that talent pretty well, a little bit of a style change from their predecessors. And now there's going to be some roster turnover, A, because a lot of their good players are turning pro, and B, because now they get to bring in the kinds of guys who fit their system. And just like with Tommy Lloyd, I think we're going to see a slight tweak from sort of the style Arizona had under Sean Miller and under Tommy Lloyd in year one. I think with Chip Hale, we're going to start to see maybe players who fit a little bit of a different profile than the kinds of guys that Jay Johnson really liked.
I think there are 5 shortstops listed in that class of 22. That might be a trend under Chip.
Under
he's
former big league infielder Chip Hale.
Exactly. Yeah. He's very defense oriented. I think that that was a strategy that Andy Lopez used, right, in recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Back in the day, it's bring in, if you get shortstops can play anywhere, right? It's usually the best athlete on the field, the best fielder. If you got 4 or 5 quote unquote shortstops, and one of them's playing third base, and one's playing second, and one's playing center, you're going to have a really good defensive team. And they did improve a lot defensively this year under Chip, and I think that'll continue.
Right. Former Pac-12 shortstop Andy Lopez considered shortstops to be the best athletes on the field. Yeah.
All right. Awards time.
Let's do it.
Before we get into that, just want to remind you guys that you can subscribe to the Arizona Daily Star at Tucson.com. But if you want free Arizona Wildcats content, download the Wildcaster app. Don't need a subscription unless you're trying to read some of Greg Hansen's columns. He's doing a summer breakdown of the top 100 teams in Tucson history, a daunting project, but something that I've really enjoyed reading every day. It's as we get closer and closer, we're going to see some pretty high-ranking Arizona Wildcats sports teams. We've already have, but we're going to continue to see more of those.
Be honest, you're from here.
Yes.
You grew up here. Did you know that the Tucson Sky existed before
No.
Greg Hansen?
No clue.
That is maybe my favorite thing that he's written.
Is that professional volleyball?
Professional co-ed volleyball from the 1970s, Michael Lev.
There was some story that I did. I can't remember what it is. Made a reference to that. And that led me down a Google rabbit hole to.
We have a master list somewhere in the system here at work of all the team names of every pro team that's ever played here. It's insane. Wow. It's insane. That's a separate podcast, though. Let's get down, let's
dial
get down
it back
to the awards.
in. Sticking with that best team for the Wildcats this season, Michael Lev, we'll start with you. Who was it?
Well, do we want to announce what Justin's
Sure.
picks
We'll go
were?
through Justin's picks.
Give us Justin's.
So
and then
we'll go through the category. So best team, he has Arizona men's basketball.
Okay.
Best coach, Tommy Lloyd. Best moment, Arizona men's tennis program winning its first ever Pac-12 championship, a really great one. Male athlete of the year, Benedict Matherin. Female athlete of the year, Delaney Schnell. And newcomer of the year, Pella Larson. I'm going to add 2 more for us that we can kind of circle back to at the end. Underrated storyline of the year, and then one big question for the fall this coming season, whether it's an overarching theme for athletics or whether it's for one specific program.
Sure.
So we're going to go category by category
Yep,
here, right?
category by category.
Okay. So number 1,
Best team.
Best team.
And you can take multiple, clearly Arizona men's basketball had a tremendous season,
But it can be relative to expectations too.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So
They exceeded expectations.
Yes, they did.
Based on what people thought about them in the preseason. They were so good during the regular season, and then do you consider the NCAA tournament to be disappointing?
No.
I mean, they made it to the Sweet 16.
I think
you could never expect to go beyond the Sweet 16.
They're kind of the opposite of the softball team, which is another one that I thought about here. Like a really disappointing regular season, then they go on this amazing postseason run and make it to the College World Series unexpectedly. But I don't know. I feel like men's tennis kind of deserves a nod here for winning. They won the Pac-12 for the first time ever.
Right. And they also kind of flip-flop like the men's basketball, where they had the great regular season and then they first round.
I just think
exit.
that's such a noteworthy singular accomplishment. And I think it's in Stanford and I don't know,
all
UCLA,
the other California
all those
schools
usually
had
dominate
won since
tennis,
the 80s.
right? Yeah. So I'm gonna give the nod to men's tennis.
That's good. Yes, I agree with you, but I also agree with Justin. I think men's basketball, for reasons that are both fair and unfair, they're the biggest deal in town. And when they play well, Tucson's a different place to live when the Arizona men's basketball team is rolling. And they were certainly rolling this year. It wasn't just that they were good. It was that they were so fun to watch, that it was such a change stylistically from what they had seen before, that the players seemed to play loose and free, that McHale seemed to feed into the players and the players feed into McHale. It was just different. It was different.
Yeah, there were games this year where McHale was as loud as I've been around.
Right, and it wasn't just that they won the Pac-12 regular season title and won the Pac-12 tournament title and were a number 1 seed. It was, I think, what this team sort of represents. I think that this is the year that Tucson sort of fell a little bit more in love with men's basketball because of the style, probably because of the new coach and sort of the dark cloud that had hung over this program for so long because of the NCAA stuff. To me, this team was important, and the fact that they succeeded was big. So I'll go with men's basketball.
Kind of restoring the tradition of Arizona basketball.
Well, Lute Olson's coaching tree isn't particularly huge, given how long he was here. Lute Olson's legacy to the world is the style of play that Arizona plays. And this, you could watch, and I'm old enough to have remembered those old Lute teams. You can watch this year's team and squint a little. You go like, oh yeah, that's a Lute team, right? This is a team that runs and dunks and thumps its chest and plays good defense despite playing that free-flowing style. But just really, I think the most pleasant surprise all year was how fun they were to watch.
Absolutely. So we've got 2 consensus teams, men's tennis and men's basketball.
And what about you?
I don't have any disagreements with that. I can't really pick another one. I mean, there's not a standout on the men's team. I mean, baseball had an up and down season. Men's track produced a couple athletes that went to the NCAA championships, which was good. Men's golf had a good finish to their season.
They made the NCAAs?
Yeah, made the NCAAs. Best moment for the men's golf team, though, was the announcement that they're going to get their own clubhouse golf course.
Yeah, Tucson Country Club.
Yeah, Tucson Country Club. So big deal for them.
I mean, they also won an NCAA regional for the first time in forever.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a different category. I will hold my tongue, but I think that was one of those sneaky great sports accomplishments this year.
All right, best coach. Justin picked Tommy Lloyd. Can you make the case for anybody else?
You can make the case for Clancy Shields, going back to the tennis front on that one. Can you make the case for Caitlin Lowe?
Playing devil's advocate here? Absolutely, you can.
It's just so hard when they were just so uncharacteristically bad during the regular season.
Right. And how much of that's on the coach? Yeah. But, I mean, they pulled it look, man, they were undefeated in the NCAA tournament heading into the Women's College World Series and did not get their doors blown off in the Women's College World Series either, despite...
No, she had kind of the most pressure on her because she's following a legend.
There were people mid-season emailing us and posting online asking about her job status. A, it's a month into her first season. B, she's the Willie Mays of college softball. I was blown away by that. And I was gratified and happy for her that they made the Women's College World Series because people aren't going to be coming after her now. She just bought herself 5 years, right?
Oh, yeah. My vote is also for Tommy Lloyd, though, factoring in everything. First-year coach, implemented, as Ryan mentioned, a completely different system of play. It's always really challenging to cobble a roster together in that particular sport. I think probably harder than it is in men's tennis. So given all of those factors, the fun, the energy that he brought back to McHale, the success that they had, how far they went, I'm going to go with Tommy Lloyd.
I'll give a vote for Caitlin Lowe.
Okay, Tommy Lloyd. Again, for all the reasons we talked about. Yeah. And again, when you're the men's basketball coach at Arizona, you're the most famous person in town, aren't you? Mm-hmm. And I think he really seemed to embrace that. I think that by being just a down-to-earth dude, and you, Alec, have witnessed this far more than I have, I think that goes a long way here. He talks all the time about being a small-town guy. Tucson's a city of 1 million people, but it's a big, small town. And I think it's just a great fit. And I wouldn't be surprised, again, to see more and more fans come out year after year and it to look the way it used to under Lute because of their affection for Tommy Lloyd, the person, as much as Tommy Lloyd, the coach.
All right, best moment of the year. I'll start. I know everybody loves the Ben Mathurin dunk against TCU, but I'm going to go with the three-point shot. You look at Arizona's history in the NCAA tournament, like Arizona historically either does not make that shot or another team makes that shot to beat them. Right?
Great point.
So
yeah.
This is one of those gut check times. It's season on the line. You're down 3. You need a 3 on this possession. You don't want to play the foul game because TCU had been hitting from the foul line. Justin and I, our colleague that's not here with us today, we were sitting next to each other, and as soon as Eddie Lampkin had that, the layup and one hit, put TCU up 3, I turned to Justin. I was like, "We're going home, man. Let's start booking our flights back to Tucson." and all of a sudden the possession seemed lost at the beginning. They were trapping, Mathurin had it in his hands. It was a deep three, and all of a sudden he hits it from a foot on the 2 feet on the extending March Madness logo. Just one of the most clutch shots that I've seen an Arizona basketball player hit.
Look at that memory, by the way. I'm impressed. When you get older like me, you're going to forget stuff like this.
I just wrote down the TCU game. Like that entire game was just, it was an emotional roller coaster. I mean, it was back and forth, and they had to come up clutch. It felt like, at any moment it could have just slipped away, and you're just like, God, they had such a good season. At least get to the Sweet 16, weekend, right? At least get to the Sweet 16. If you don't do that, it's just not going to feel satisfying. And they came through big time. I would also put down, or also put up for consideration, football defeating Cal.
Yeah,
the
Stealing
only
my vote.
victory.
Yeah.
Finally, a football mention.
Yes.
We've been trying to get to football.
The only victory of the season. It was obviously a very difficult season, a very difficult rebuilding project. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But when Michael Wiley burst into the end zone for the only touchdown in that game, and it felt like, hey, they're actually going to pull this out. And then the celebration afterward, that was also a very cool moment.
They beat 36 Cal Berkeley Bears who made the trip. I was going to say, I thought I was being so clever. I thought I was going to sneak in and be like, but what about football, Michael Lev? But you beat me to it. To me, that's the moment. They stormed the field when they improved to 1 and what?
20.
Yeah. To me, that's impressive. But again, it matters. And as Jed Fish builds this up, I think, Michael, you'd agree with me. The only way wins and losses were going to matter with Jed Fish last season would have been if they went 0-12. The only way the record would have mattered at all would have been had they not won a game. Because then you're carrying this albatross of it'd be like a 24-game losing streak heading into the start of this season. And it's all anybody, including us, would be talking about, because it'd be the longest losing streak in America. To just get that win, and I don't think it matters that it's against Cal. Had they just beaten anybody last year, I think that was going to be a big highlight. So I'd go with that. With the caveat of this, had Dalen Terry's steal and layup at the buzzer gone in, it would have been the greatest play in the history of Arizona athletics, all sports, no argument. Chuck Cecil would sit there and go, "And my 103-yard interception return, it ain't that."
So that was the play where it should have been a backcourt violation.
It should
have been a backcourt violation, and then was
not a foul. It was a backcourt violation first, and he flopped.
Right? Should exactly. It was, and everybody kind of stopped because they thought it was going to be either a foul or a backcourt violation. And they go, I remember I was watching the game, obviously working, but we work from home because it's the year 2022. I heard my wife, who has a couple degrees from the U of A, make a sound like somebody had been shot, where it was, "Oh, no!" And just rooms away in my house. And I bet if you stood outside at whatever it was, 9:30 that night in Tucson,
everybody said
you could have heard a collective, "Oh yes, oh no," at the same time. And to me, that would have been just one of the great plays in Arizona history. Alas, time had run out.
Yep. All right. Male Athlete of the Year. Justin gave his vote to Ben Mathurin. Ryan, we'll swing it back to you.
Oh, gosh.
You can also vote Ben Mathurin.
It's kind of got to be Ben Mathurin. It could also be Daniel Susak, somebody who's going to be a high draft pick. The tennis thing was interesting. Again, while we're harping on how great this tennis team was, and they were so balanced. I think they didn't have an ace, so to speak. So they would be in the conversation.
Did golf have did the men's golf team have like a star?
Not at the end, they did, but not sort of an all year, big dog. I don't think that there was necessarily a football player who you'd hang best male athlete on. It's got to be Ben Mathurin. Again, a guy who really played himself into the NBA draft lottery.
Yep.
I saw him. I saw a recent mock draft that had him going 5th. So moving on up, I wrote down Ben Mathurin and Daniel Susak. Ben Mathurin was the Pac-12 Player of the Year. That's a pretty noteworthy accomplishment. That this doesn't just happen. I mean, he improved so much, and is an example of someone who benefited a lot from coming back to school for another year. Really rounded out his game to kind of match his athleticism. Daniel Susak had a spectacular season. He hit, I think, 366, 12 homers, 61 RBIs, caught almost every game again. Going to be a first-round pick. He's on he's going to be on every single All-America team that comes out here over the next few weeks.
He hit more home runs this year than Arizona's team did in its first season at High Corbett Field.
Oh.
Yeah, it was an adjustment. There's something up with the baseball. It's always the baseball.
Two great candidates, all go just a different direction. I think Christian Coloco.
Oh, okay.
For him, it seems like he didn't necessarily reach the highest standards that Ben Mathurin did playing in the lottery, but I think you look at what Christian Coloco did, what he was at the start of his University of Arizona career and what he is now, just a night and day difference, transformed himself into a capable NBA player. I just think if you would have looked at him what he was freshman year and said, 2 years from now, he's going to be a potential first round NBA pick, you would have said you're crazy. You could see potential, but just to see that growth, I think Christian Coloco definitely raised the ceiling of the Arizona team.
You and I were both in McHale the night against Oregon when he gets fouled and he goes to the free throw line with a chance to win.
Freshman year?
His freshman year. And he gets to the free throw line and he was as nervous as anybody in the building, right? He missed them both, right? Mm-hmm. In the year, and even then was 2020, even now in 2022, a night like that, 70% of all players would either suck forever after that, transfer out, run and hide. That sort of a moment costing your team a game at the free throw line, it's hard. In today's transfer portal, in the era of the transfer portal.
When something goes wrong, you can just leave.
He could have just left. And the fact that not only he stayed through a coaching transition, he stayed when Tommy Lloyd brought in Omar Ballo to play his position, that he stayed, developed, got better, and is now going to play in the NBA, is one of the great stories of the Arizona 2021-22 season.
All right, female athlete of the year, Justin put out Delaney Schnell. I will start. I'm going to go Sam Thomas. I think just what she represents as a figure for Arizona women's basketball. Didn't necessarily have her best season. I think a year ago she was, shot the ball a little bit better, was a key part of getting Arizona to the Final Four. But I think her staying as long as she did and now left Arizona was not really on the WNBA draft radar whatsoever. Gets a tryout with the Phoenix Mercury and is now a role player in the WNBA and getting good minutes. Played against Ari McDonald, just this past weekend. I think just to see the love that she had for playing at Arizona and the love that the fans had for her, Ari McDonald was the more successful player, but I think you could make the case that Sam Thomas might be the more loved Arizona player.
I agree with you. I also, the average fan doesn't know how hard it is to make the WNBA roster as an undrafted free agent. It never happens. And for her to do that as somebody who is not great at any one thing. She's a good defender, very good defender. But, she's not somebody who lights up the scoreboard. She's not 6'5". She's not a great rebounder or necessarily a great passer. She's just a Swiss Army knife player.
Plays hard every night.
And I think consummate teammate. Somebody who I'm sure is beloved already on that Mercury roster, and she's been there like a month and a half. Michael Lev, female athlete of the year.
Yeah, Justin said Delaney Schnell, and I just don't know how you can go against her. She won a silver medal in the Olympics in diving, which is part of the story, but she's also a 4-time academic All-American. Mm-hmm. Just got that nod again for this year. It has a 4.0 GPA. So, you look up, the definition of student athlete. I mean, that's it right there. I jotted down Allie Skaggs from the softball team. Yep. 24 home runs, one OPS of 1,259. Very impressive. I think most of that team's back, right? They don't have a lot of...
Only lost 3 seniors.
Bowen.
Yeah, they're going to...
Peanut Martinez.
They're going to hit a lot of home runs next year at Hillenbrand. But I think Schnell has got to be the call here.
Right. I agree on Schnell. I would also throw another softball player out there, Izzy Pacho. And again, maybe she's just front of mind because like Delaney Schnell and like Allie Skaggs, Tucson girl, right? Izzy Pacho went to Ironwood Ridge, as did Allie Skaggs. Delaney Schnell went to Tucson High. But you looked at Izzy Pacho. She was really good down the stretch. Played a great third base. Can mash. Somebody who I think, again, in the age of NIL, name, image, and likeness, I'm sure Izzy Pacho will make a little money next year.
All right, newcomer of the year. I'm going to start because I want to get my pick out there before Michael Lev steals it because I feel like I'll be infringing on his territory here. Hasn't played a single snap for Arizona Wildcats football team.
I know where you're going here.
Tedorora McMillan, the 4-star wide receiver. I don't care that he is not playing in a game with the highest, tied for the highest rated recruit in program history. They've originally committed to Oregon. Arizona didn't stop pursuing him, got him in the rest of Juice County.
Please, let's not make that a thing for me. Go ahead.
But I think what he represents in terms of the football recruiting aspect that Jed Fish is trying to be selling everybody, right? Like Jed Fish has talked a big game about recruiting, getting the best players, recruiting in state, and he had done that. But I think getting T-Mac is his way of announcing Arizona is going to be a threat in Pac-12 recruiting as long as he's going to be there. So he's my newcomer of the year.
What a fascinating selection. I thought about this. Like, can we use guys who enrolled in January for
because
spring
he's
football?
on campus, was in spring football.
Hasn't really done anything, quote unquote. I like it.
Well, and you're always going to pull for your fellow Juice County resident, right?
Boy. No comment. Ryan, I got kind of a long spiel here, so why don't you go ahead?
No.
And make your pick if you have one. If you don't, I'm ready to go here.
But I'm double checking something real quick. Hold on. To me, when we talk about a player who might change everything, right? In a program, you think about a guy like Colton Smith,
tennis player,
and your average fan may not know who Colton Smith is.
Yep.
If we're saying that T-Mac's important because T-Mac's the highest player or tied for the best recruit they've ever gotten, Colton Smith is 7 echelons above the best player Arizona's ever gotten before in men's tennis. Came here as a freshman. Stats were good. I mean, not necessarily dominant, but my goodness, he's a freshman. He was the number 7 recruit in America. He was as high as number 257 in the world. Somebody who, again, plays well on clay and on hard surfaces. If you're looking for a reason to believe that what Clancy Shields has built at Arizona will last, that this year was not just a fluke, look at Colton Smith. He is T-Mac times 5 in terms of impact on his team. Michael Lev, your thoughts?
All right, so I was kind of stumped by this category, and so I decided to place a phone call on my drive over here to Matt Enzer, the head of media relations at Arizona. I'm like, hey, can you help me with this? So he sent me a list of possible candidates. I'm going to kind of work my way up here. Pella Larson, who was the Pac-12 Sixth Man of the Year, did make that list, so he's at least worthy of honorable mention. Paige Dimmler of the softball team had a pretty good year, right? 10 home runs, 25 RBIs. That's nice. Carolina Melgrati.
Oh yeah,
I'm
golfer.
Pronouncing that right?
Yeah,
golf
she's
team.
Really good Italian.
All conference. Finished in the top 20 in all 10 events she played. 73.15 average score. That's the 7th best all time among all Arizona freshmen ever. However, the winner is going to be. You ready for this?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Puck Stubby of the volleyball
Ooh,
team.
good call. Okay.
Yeah. So she was a freshman. I believe her position is called opposite.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Opposite hitter. Opposite
So
side.
So ranked 9th in Arizona freshman history in kills, 4 double-doubles. She was first among conference freshmen in kills. She was the Pac-12 freshman of the week twice, named to the Pac-12 all-freshman team. And great note here, she is from a town called Gouda, Netherlands. And
home of the cheese?
Yes, that is exactly right. That is where Gouda cheese comes from. So my pick for newcomer of the year, with help from my research team, is Puck Stubby of the women's volleyball team.
In fairness, that sounds like Matt Enser's pick. But yes, good. That's, by the way, that's more research than I have done, and you get extra gold star for that. That's big time.
All right, for the sake of time, we were going to do kind of an underrated storyline, but I think we should just kind of do a quick.
This is the technical awards.
Technical,
given out Thursday night at a private banquet.
I'll give you like in 30 seconds or less.
Yeah,
an underrated storyline.
Yep.
The perception of Dave Hickey has changed among the fan base. Right? I think there were a lot of people calling for his head at a certain point in time. Obviously, the Kevin Sumlin hire did not go well. I think he's turned things around in a big way. He inherited a lot of trouble here at Arizona. There was a lot of stuff going on. He has righted the ship. He's got things pointed in the right direction. You know, the recruiting that you cited with Jed Fish, I think a lot of people are very bullish on what he's going to be able to do here. Obviously, it seems like he got the Tommy Lloyd hire right. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's kind of the underrated storyline of this academic year.
You're going to laugh at me. You know what I think the underrated and underreported storyline is the fact that we're going to know probably by the end of the summer what sort of sanctions Arizona faces from the Sean Miller, FBI, NCAA stuff. Yeah. Name 3 letters. You know, what is it? The complex case unit, and you know all that stuff. IARP, all these things, right? I think that again, it has been so darn long since this happened, and sort of all the main characters have scattered, that I think your average fan may not know that this is coming. And, you know, for me, I think, you know, we have written with some speculation that this is going to be a suspension for Miller at his new school. Maybe Arizona loses a scholarship or 2 for a couple of years. But, you know, this is still, it's not a black cloud, but it's a gray cloud that still hangs over the athletic department. And until we know about the level 1 allegation that they threw at Dave Hickey and Bobby Robbins about this, until that is cleared, I don't think we can say that it's necessarily blue skies yet. But, you know, we're close. This will happen. My prediction would be at some point before like September.
Okay. It's been so long that the entire world changed. Like that which used to be illegal and frowned upon in NCAA athletics is now accepted and quote unquote encouraged.
To the point where I think where the NCAA, if I could speculate wildly here, I think that that Arizona is going to get probably the most in trouble for the academic stuff if proven true. Right, that if the NCAA is able to prove that you know Book Richardson and Mark Phelps altered transcripts or whatever it was there, you know, to me that's the thing. You know, if they prove that people were paying players, well, you know, you can pay players now. I think that's you're right. The world has changed so much that what Arizona is accused of doing by the NCAA is not necessarily wrong anymore. If that makes sense.
All right, I'm going to go with Arizona being on top of NIL deals. It seems like, for the most part, Arizona has done across, at least in the Pac-12, a good job of managing NIL deals. You look at, you know, up north, you know, they're with ASU. They were not. There were football players that transferred out of that program with the primary reason that they were not getting the NIL help that they thought they deserved. You know, I think Arizona is still, I've yet to see some huge figures, but Dalen Terry's had his own ice cream flavor. It's been a tough navigating this because Arizona has so many international recruits in a lot of its athletic departments where They didn't get that. Now I guess they can.
You can if it's passive income.
Yeah.
Where's Bruce Pascoe for the special edition
just
on this?
Navigating that, they've done for the most part a good job of being able to help out the student athletes.
Can I jump in real quick, and I'll be brief on this? How about this? How about the fact that Arizona has leapfrogged Arizona State in almost everything in the last 2 years?
Ooh.
I mean, you could make the argument. Okay, ASU softball this year, really, really good, right?
Yep.
Very good. Beat Arizona, but their softball coach left, right?
Yep.
Herm Edwards in a giant mess. Bobby Hurley has not delivered. Women's basketball, Charlie Turner Thorne retired, and they replaced her with somebody who was not a household name, at least in the West. Ray Anderson under constant, and this dovetails with your Dave Hickey thing. Ray Anderson constantly criticized by the fan base for the mistakes that he's made. Remember 2 years ago when we were all talking about how Arizona's going to be chasing ASU for a while?
Yeah.
Arizona's caught them, and regardless of what the football record says, I think Arizona's a better football program than ASU right now. ASU could blow up tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true.
Certainly more stable.
Certainly more stable. And, again, I think ASU has some recruiting advantages that Arizona doesn't have in football. But, the days of, there's that billboard on I-10 that the ASU people pay for.
And it's gone now.
It's gone now. I think that is how quickly things turn with good hires. And maybe that's the lesson we learn is when you make a good hire, your fortunes can change pretty quickly.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our awards pod. Look ahead to, what's going to be happening down the line. It's an exciting time. I think we're in a really good spot. Just as reporters being able to, cover this, treated well by coaches. There's a lot of great opportunities coming our way, and it's fun to be a part of.
It's interesting and it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's one of the good parts about our jobs.
Never stops either.
Yeah,
we're in this.
It's in the middle of June and we're doing a podcast. Yeah.
And, football has had 10 commitments in the last 2 weeks. Basketball has had 2.
Probably more coming.
High-level transfers. The NBA drafts in 2 weeks. Then it's summer league. And then by that time, we're going to be sweating in 100-degree weather for football training camp for Wildcats. So thanks for listening to the podcast. You can follow all of our work at Tucson.com and the Wildcaster app and at the Wildcaster on Twitter. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.